Hello. Oh, whoa, hello. Just let me adjust. I am Frankie Boyle. Apologies if you thought that you were going to come see a comedian. Hopefully this won't be a stand-up comedy show, but you never know. Initially not as disappointed as his fan base. They are strong. I do these videos of YouTube of like mental health and wellness and how good light is to your brain. And the comments from his fan base are like, "You're not Frankie." And I'm like, well, I am. And the other one is, "Stop taking men's names." And I'm like, wow, okay. Best one of all, though, this is random, sorry, this is offshoot. Best one of all was, he proceeded to watch the 8-minute video of me talking about mental health and wellness and light, and then just writes, "Why are you talking about light?" I love the fact that he was watching it. I don't know if he just got ginger blindness and just thought, yeah, this is not a comedy show. Anyway, while we were here, let me just try and work out. So can you hear me okay, first of all? Yeah? Okay, great. The adrenaline's going a little bit, so let me just ease into it. Okay, human behaviour. Now, human behaviour is a fascinating topic, and pretty much most people are interested by human behaviour. Now, human behaviour slices into two parts, the conscious and the subconscious. Now, I'm not going to delve into your conscious, that's on you. That can be all your property. But what I'm going to look into today is the subconscious, how our behaviours within space get provoked by the space and the colours and the textures that we see. So let's dive into the subconscious, and that comes into our biological and psychological. Our biological is how we have built over 4 billion years, 10 billion years. Wow, I've just completely accelerated human existence there. 4 billion years of evolution, what we have been programmed deep down into our nervous system to understand, together with our psychological. So that would be our colour theory, what we're taught experiences, that experiences ourselves. And then we get into the senses. And so how we understand the world around us is through our senses. And what's the strongest sense of all? It's vision. Vision is light, light is colour. And what is right in the centre of that? World domination. So we're going to look into world domination purely through the subconscious, take you into this little journey. And pretty much I've covered everything in the first slide, so if I offshoot randomly, it's going to be okay. Okay. Oh, right, yep, the slide that I always find the hardest to talk about is myself. Where do I start? I've had over a decade of experience working in the events, TV, film, architectural, artistic, installation, experiences world. There's no light I have not touched. I also have had a decade of experience working with the fabrication, installation, programming, technical implements. Because you have to put a positive spin on it. My superpower, I was born with a speech and language disorder known as DLD. Now, DLD doesn't really mean anything to you or I. So how I like to describe it is, it's how language disappears from you. So therefore I will be talking, which is going to make this talk amusing. I'll be talking and suddenly forget what I'm supposed to be talking about. Make this talk kind of gamified. And also, it was disbobulation, dysfunction of language. So again, I will be taking language and kind of sticking it together. You'll probably be thinking, that's not a word. Go with it. We'll work through together how this talk comes through. But it basically allowed me to, when you take the main communicational tool away from a child, you then teach it to understand the subconscious language. And the subconscious language in the womb, the subconscious language in the womb is the light, is the space, is the atmosphere. So I have taught myself the subconscious, so therefore I can kind of have a bit more of a sixth sense about how people are feeling, moving, experiencing, interplaying energies towards a space and an environment. And this is kind of what everything is going to be talking about. Now, light is a language that everybody speaks, whether they are aware of it or not. And we are going to go into the different areas. So, to create our world domination, we need our biological understanding, we need our psychological understanding. So biological is all about the inbuilt 4 billion years of evolution, what our DNA is telling us, what inside our brain we have taught to understand. Then into our psychological, more that what our taught experiences, our own lifetime, how does that interplay? So half the talk will be on biological, half the talk will be on psychological. Okay, so let's dive in. I can guarantee that if I asked anyone in this audience what day do they feel better on, I'm going to say they're pretty much going to say that day. Is there anyone that disagrees with me? No, don't think so. So now that's not just a coincidence. Blue light is the highest energy wavelength there is. It's like having a cup of coffee to the system. So if you understand, if we start to dissect wavelengths, let's just take it back to real basic stuff, the wavelengths of light itself. Now, think of a 100-meter race. And all the colours are lined up. You've got the blue guy, he's short, he's muscly, kind of angry, he's ready to go. Now, you go into the different colours. Don't worry, I'm not going to go into every character. And then we get to the red guy. The red guy, he's tall, he's lanky, he's calm, he's relaxed. Okay, so the gun goes off. The 100-meter race is the sky. He hits the sky's atmosphere first. He scatters his light everywhere. He has the high energy frequency. So therefore, that is the reason we feel so motivated, positive, and healthy on these days. If you take the sunset, for example, as the long-distance race, the red guy wins. He has made it all the way through that atmosphere, just calming down, relaxing, chilling out. He's fine. So basically, when you start to look at wavelengths of colour, you just need to see these different characters. This day, because you don't get that hit of blue, it's like you're running on decaf coffee. You don't really know why you feel so miserable, but you do. And so therefore, we look into the different ways that light has that effect. So it's just basically a slide to sort of prove that light isn't some sort of hocus pocus, as it were. Right, okay, so 4 billion years of evolution. We have understood 2 moving sources of light. We have not understood static light. Static light is introduced in the last 180 years. We have not evolved to it. So moving light in the sky, the sun, and then the fire into the evening. Now, if you are trying to get the best out of your mental health well-being, you want to mimic Mother Nature. So if you are working from home, you want to mimic the sky. So you want to be bright, white, flat, light, all above your head, motivating you next to the window, feel as good, as positive as you can. Into the evening, you turn off that overhead light. I know lots of people like to have that overhead light on, but don't. Have lamps on, have candles. So it's all about eliciting those responses of how you would have evolved 4 billion years of evolution, of understanding that red wavelength elicits calm, joy, relaxation. So in the evening, not only does your nervous system feel calmer subconsciously, but also you look much better. If you light someone from above, they look terrible, probably like I'm being lit right now. They cast a shadow all over their face. Light someone from beneath also does the same. But therefore, if you make someone glow beautifully, especially with the incandescent tones, they look lovely. And also, we reflect how we feel within one another. So therefore, if you look good, I look good, everyone's good. Fucking great. Fire. So fire, again. So there isn't one person in this room that does not get transfixed when they look into flame. Now again, that is purely because 4 billion years of evolution. I feel like if we got a pound every time I said that, then maybe we'd be pretty good. Anyway, so yeah, you are portholing your set. Portholing? Yeah, why not? Let's go with it. Into all of your centuries and centuries of programming. So therefore, this is food, warmth, comfort, joy, creativity, family, life, socializing. This elicits all of those emotions. So therefore, That is why we have a flame on a candle in a romantic restaurant or anything like that. So again, to elicit that calming mentality. So we have to make sure we have the right type of wavelength at the right time of day. Circadian rhythm. Okay, that was a bit of a shock. I thought it was a different slide, so that was interesting. Light hitting the cells of our skin in the back of our eye into our brain. Now, if we think of our brain like a car, food is the fuel, but sunlight is the engine. We need sunlight far more than we do actually food. 10% of light, no, say that again, 10% of food reacts and elicits connection to the brain, but 48% influences light. Bollocks. Start again. 10% of light influences the brain. 10% of food influences the brain. 48% of light. I think I've even said it wrong, but I'm pretty sure that you know what I'm talking about. Thank God. Anyway, we'll go on to this one. 10% of light that we receive through the eye gets into all of our cognitive performances, our mood, our memory, our hormones, positivity, mental health. So therefore, it's so important to get your light right in the day. Remember to turn off your overhead lights into the evening. Remember to bring into those eliciting, calming, relaxing modes. Remember to have as much light into your brain as possible working from the day. Ideally, near a window. But the vitamin D doesn't come through windows, so you need to go outside. Okay, this is the slide I thought I was coming to. So we understand that blue light, high energy, like a cup of coffee, so therefore that's cortisol. It's also connected to different nervous systems. So we have the fight or flight nervous system, and we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which are all about the relax, digest. So at the daytime, we want to bring up all of the wavelengths. We want to fire up our brain. The quicker we can look at daylight in the day, that brings all the energy into our brains. So therefore, when you wake up, ideally don't look at your phone first thing. Ideally, go to a window, stick your head outside, or just go for a walk, because that would be probably more normal. And then into the evening, you want to decrease cortisol. Now, cortisol is a very active hormone. So therefore, when in the evenings, this is the reason we're having our sleep disorder crises at the moment. In the evening, our irises have got really big because we're trying to take on its board as much light as possible. However, we pick up our screen or our phone or whichever screen you like, and the amount of blue light coming from that screen is far more intensified than actually the sky could ever bring you. So therefore, you're turning your brain off, but then you're looking into your screen and you're soaking up all of this blue light, more blue light than you would have ever done before. So therefore, that is why we're having this sleep disorder crisis and we can't really escape from it. Hence why you want to put your candles on. There's different functions on the phone that you can also do a triple click on the side, and you just turn the whole phone to red mode, which I highly recommend. I have to be honest, my sleep has got so much better since I have done that. Okay, so movement, this one. So we have been programmed to understand different wavelengths at different times of day and how that affects our positivity, digestion, the whole function of our body running. But also what we have programmed is movement. Now, movement we have been programmed to because of obviously being hunted or hunting. So therefore, anything that slightly moves will be pulled or drawn to it. However, if you start to look into movement like the flock of birds, the movement of trees, shoal of fish, the fire, water, that has this really calming, slowly moving. Now that is what we call tapping into our nervous system as neuroaesthetics. Neuroaesthetics is the word has gone. See, I told you it'd be a gamified. Neuroaesthetics is where we tap into our nervous system. They've realized in this new evidence in neuroscience that we need to be either amongst nature or seeing art, because it allows us to detect, there we go, got it out, movement within the environment around us. And when we tap into this movement, it taps into our safety, because at no point in our evolutionary history, if we had time to see the trees moving or the birds gliding through the air, it meant that we were safe, meant that we could actually relax and everything was good in the world. So therefore, if you're creating experiences, or even just at home, if you're wanting to elicit this just really relaxing into our nervous system, into that subconscious communicational tool that we have inside us, you want to look into these types of motions and movements. Ideally, you want to have movement within your home with lighting. You ideally want to have dim to warm lights to, again, bring that allowing your environment to slowly change. Biophilic design. Now, biophilic design, again, is all about that evolutionary pre-programmed primal being of our nervous system. It's about bringing the outdoors indoors. All about our biological programming. So therefore, everything that we would have seen and understood in our previous lives, so therefore the materiality, the colors, the tones, the shapes, the textures, about bringing that indoors. So therefore, we are literally relaxing subconsciously our nervous system. If you want someone to feel relaxed, you bring them into these type of environments. The only unofficial, no, the only fake, no, better word, the only colour that is man-made, there we go. The only colour that is man-made is brilliant white. So therefore, it isn't necessarily just about your beiges and your tones and your greens, but it's actually about bringing all of those colours in and not being scared about those colours. And then the textures, so therefore the fabrics that you're using, the woods, and all of those things. And then that taps obviously very nicely into neuroaesthetics as well, with all of this neuroscience coming up about bringing the outdoors, indoors, tapping into that nervous system. Okay, last slide on this one. Emotions come from hormones. Hormones are chemicals produced by the sun itself. So therefore, literally, light equals emotions. And that is how the sort of the subconscious side of that stuff. Okay, so back to world domination. We're locked and loaded with all our biological. We're now going to go into the psychological and really understand the colour theory, the experiences, the taught experiences, play. Now, everybody loves play, even if you'd like to deny it, everybody loves it. Okay, so colour theory. Blue, we know, high, intense wavelength. So therefore, if we are trying to elicit like an experience which was sort of disruptive, nobody looks good lit with blue light. You know, it's a very like distracting kind of colour. Then we look at green wavelength, obviously looking at the different tones and hues and colour theory of it. But generally, it's the relaxing, calming, safety, eliciting those type of connections to it. The red wavelength. Now, we know the red wavelength has now got huge amounts of healing properties. Like we have all the infrared, near red, cell growth, energy. But when you actually start dissecting the red wavelengths, it's really interesting because you have lots of different emotions connected to it. And one of the most interesting connections to what a specific type of red wavelength is the fact of it inhibits your inhibitions. So there's certain like casinos and bits and pieces that specifically have this red wavelength embedded into their lives, so therefore they spend more money subconsciously. So I thought that was a bit of a interesting. So when you start really dissecting the different wavelengths, we get to Baker Miller pink. Now this I do find really fascinating because Baker Miller pink, there's a specific type of pink wavelength that makes us 20% less aggressive. Now, don't you think it's fascinating that we actually give this to girls? I don't know, that whole psychology there, I find it quite interesting. So they decided to put it to the challenge, and they painted a prison cell all of this pink to see actually if it would actually make these men less aggressive. And sure enough, it did, which they got very annoyed by. So in the end, they actually started peeling off the pink and actually tried to scratch it back to like kind of reboost and energize themselves, which was, I can just sort of see these men just like picking slowly with no fingernails. Maybe they do, who knows? That was generalization. A football team. So again, there was a football team that actually had painted their opponent's dressing room pink and their urinals, just to piss them off. And sure enough, they actually jumped up a league that year. So there is if nothing else tells you that this works, there is I think I'm going to try and remember this because I haven't been looking at my notes at all. I think in 2017, Kendall Jenner painted her living room pink and said it made her feel much calmer. So if you don't believe the football team or the prison, then you can believe Kendall Jenner. Oh no, on this one. This is the clicker. No. So light is the trigger for every emotion going, and the absence of light is the strongest emotion of them all, and that's fear. Create one light on within that pitch black room. You create curiosity and intrigue. Turn that light to a specific color. You either get safety or fear. Turn all the lights on, every single texture under the sun. You get overwhelmed, disconnected. Hopefully nobody worked on this show. You have absolutely no idea where the hell you're supposed to be looking at. So therefore, it's very important to try and bring people's attention along with you. If you're creating experiences that you want people to feel and move within spaces, then understand the lighting, the movement of that light, and the penetration of that light, the colorization, the diffusion. If you are going in your car 100 miles an hour, feels, let's start that again. If you're driving in your car and you're going 100 miles an hour, 110 feels no different. But a 0 to 10 is massive. Admittedly, I took my mum on a Lime bike yesterday, and that proved that point very nicely. How you light that room. Now, how you light the room, again, will elicit different emotions connected to that space. If you light from the center of the room down, you are shrinking the space. You are alienating that person's emotion to that space. Therefore, you're creating emotions of like fear and I've got all the words on my notes, but those type of emotions that I'm trying to talk about. Again, if we look, you'll remember if you have the light above your head, you're casting that shadow down their face, probably exactly how I'm doing right now. Doesn't make people feel comfortable nor look good. If you light the walls of a space, you make that space feel much larger. If you turn all the lights on to white and bringing that stark white light, you create an emotionless room. So, we have understood for our world domination, our biological effects to light, our psychological effects, all in that subconscious world, to how we can create our homes, our experiences, working with others. And these are a few of the projects that I have created using those different techniques and those tools. So the top one over there with the fiber optics, that was for Samsung. Samsung had a feature on their phone which was all about the heartbeat, and we needed to reference a installation which connected the audience member to the phone to themselves. So I was like, okay, well, why don't we look into an experience that people understand, a wheat field. So therefore, triggering that emotion of, I understand this space, it feels connecting. Then we look at their heartbeat, and their heartbeat being the data trigger to the installation itself. So therefore, it triggered the fiber optics to glow. It was an installation for 2 people. So as they walked in, they sunk their heartbeats into the phone, and they started the installation. It was a 3. The Magnum It was an immersive experience. It had to travel, so therefore we did it inside a shipping container. And it was all about, again, your trigger of your heartbeat, detecting what ice cream flavor was your flavor. No, that was an inside joke. I can't make that one. And so therefore, it was about the two different flavors. And the first one was about the sun lover or the star chaser. Can't quite remember. It's my assistant there. I'm like, yeah, that one? Yeah. I always got them mixed up, especially in the boardroom when I first pitched it. I was like, the star lover and the sun gazer, and they're like the other way around. I was like, great. Well done, Frankie. And then you got taken onto a journey by your heartbeat that triggered the installation. And we created the whole space was mirrors, which then created this anti-gravity that literally made you feel like you were flying into the space, into the center of the sun or the universe. And that whole connection, a joy, the transformation, the journey, the love, the revealing, the layering. Biophilia, which is the middle one with the girl kind of a bit scared about touching the thing. That is, again, all to do with the biological connection, which is looking into the wavelengths and color scheme of fire. So therefore, when the fire was moving through the trees, it elicited that kind of connection where people wanted to stand and communicate and socialize, and then looking into the negative space within nature itself. Anyway, and then a few more. Living Lantern, touring the globe at the moment. It's been to Athens, Taiwan, New York, and Brisbane, have I said that one? That is a 4 meter by 4 meter kinetic wind response sculpture that literally billows in the wind. It was actually quite an interesting one, this one. I know that you're not supposed to say your own artwork's quite nice, but it's actually quite nice. It's I programmed the lighting for about an hour-long period, which then allowed people to not feel like they had to move on. It was very much a stand and be awed. And as the wind billowed through it, the lighting effects changed every time. And when we put it in Athens, it was amongst all these beautiful trees, and it just like flowed, and it was like dancing. It was like an animalistic kind of connection to it. When we put it into Times Square, literally reflected the energy, just like, oh my God, this is so manic. So I was like, okay, interesting, a very, very different piece. Anyway. And the final slide is the world-dominating experience, in my opinion, Team Labs. I don't know if you know them. If you don't, you should. They are based over in Tokyo, and their consideration to every aspect, to the movement of people within the space. Like when I went to see them, so often in England, sorry, I'm obviously very ADHD, so I start a conversation here and then I'm going to go to this one. As I went to see them, the whole experience, you put your shoes away and lock the locker up and you go up through it. And I so often find all the bright lights are on and you're just sort of standing there waiting to go into the next room. Like, if you are immersing someone, keep them immersed. Like, it's like going to bed and someone's turning all the lights on and then telling you to go back to sleep again. In Team Labs, when we went through the first room we went up, we were going like in pitch black and walking uphill. Suddenly, then water just falls down by our feet, which we realize we're walking up a waterfall. Now, straight away, the cold water just hitting your feet was like sensationalized enough. And then like the water was beautifully lit, you're walking up. To be honest with you, it was just a really great way for them to wash everybody's feet before they got into it. But it was just this like straight away, you're just clicking your fingers and these people are immersed. You've got their attention, you've literally wowed them, you're moving them through into an experience. And even the material on the walls were thought about. Like everything, the carpet was an expensive carpet. The materials you could feel was good. And you just got wowed every single room that you walked in on. And some rooms didn't have crazy amount of tech, because often with technology, yes, you can be wowed by things. But if you jump too many steps away from our knowledge, subconscious, primal beings, you just are a bit like, oh, okay, that that wall like suddenly disappears and it turns purple or whatever it might be, like doesn't really do anything to you because it's so far beyond how you could necessarily communicate. So therefore, if you take everything just a few steps of a wow, just flip something on its head, you get people's attention. And the color schemes, the integration, the movement of people, it was just, yeah, it was a really nice experience to go to, so 100%. I think they're doing a few more around the globe. And I believe that is my last slide. So thank you very much for listening. Hopefully it wasn't too neurodivergent for you all. And yeah, any questions? Dun, dun, dun. Yes.
Did you include sound in that experience?
I'm just going to take it away from the white. Yes, very much so. So with Samsung, we looked into the sound and the integration because, again, sound obviously is a very huge part of that whole immersion, your senses bringing you into that immersion. So, yeah, with 4 of those projects, we looked with a sound designer, creating our own music to it, which then would sensationalize the light to go with it. So, yes. Yes?
Yeah, I've got a question. You know, in the beginning when you talked about the biological and the psychological, I was wondering... Oh, yeah, sure. So, you know, in the beginning when you were talking about the biological and the psychological, I was wondering... do you think there is also like a cultural relativity to perceiving light and maybe more so color? Especially when you mentioned team labs, I'm really curious. Did you feel like the way that they thought about light and color was different than the way you did?
Yeah, it's really interesting actually, because obviously color theory really, and especially in those countries obviously where actually the green and red almost swap, don't they? Like red actually means safety and calm, and it's the other way around. So 100%, I think deep down, like obviously the biological programming of the sunlight and the wavelengths, I think that still elicits those connections. But definitely the taught experiences within the psychological side of things definitely can have a different integration with you. And what I did actually find interesting when I worked in architectural lighting for a while, depending on how close you lived to the equator was your normal naturalization to white light. So therefore, when we were programming, I did went to the Hamptons and started pre-programming some evening looks. And my understanding of how an evening should look is far warmer. Admittedly, I've sort of gone against mine because Hamptons is actually technically probably slightly higher on the equator, but it's a warmer country, so the sunlight is actually brighter. So therefore, we understand our worlds of variation between the dimming from intensity to low as the same. So therefore, if your intensity is already set really high, your understanding of what you want as a relaxing is still much higher, so you still want brighter. Whereas if you go into like the Netherlands and much higher up, then their evening mode is like you can't see anything. It's just a candle. Anybody else? Oh yes, hello.
Hello. So since you've worked in architectural lighting as well as sort of like these immersive experiences, as well as like, I guess, like art pieces dedicated to lighting, what do you think a lesson that can be learned for architectural lighting is from these sort of more artistic expressions of lighting, especially now that we have like fairly low ceilings and like structurally buildings are quite confining in a way?
100%. Did I just overtalk you, or had you finished? Okay, just cut you off. Biophilic design is definitely something that everybody needs to be aware of. And biophilic design is literally about bringing the outside inside. So therefore, you are understanding the movement of sun, of day. So therefore, you need to mimic Mother Nature. You want to reference the sun. So within the architectural, not only do you want to sync up your lights to different atmospheres and zones and emotions, so therefore evening mode, daytime mode, work mode, but you also want to have a slight movement of that. So therefore, it just allows your brain to feel as energized and motivated through the day. So it's really important actually for architecture lighting to really get on board with this understanding of how we have literally been pre-programmed to understand that movement. Because we're just, the amount of even just not good light sources, like you need to have a light source with a really good CRI. Now, CRI is color rendering index, and the sun is 100, and a fluorescent bulb, it's about to diss these lights, we won't say that, a fluorescent bulb is 70 CRI. So therefore, you're not getting all the colors. Like a color will only reflect the wavelength of the color light source. So therefore, if that light source has embedded all of the colors, then you are going to feel motivated and positive through the day. So therefore, again, within our homes, we need to understand that light is food, that we need to have good quality light bulbs around us to make us feel as positive as we can through the daytime, for sure. Thank you.
Hi.
Not you.
I'm not going to hit it. This is a really random question, and I don't know if you know the answer, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Okay.
I just wondered if you had looked into any of this research related to people who are colourblind.
Ooh.
And I'm going to go away and do some research now because I'm interested. But yeah, just wondering about how, because often people can't see red. So I don't know. Random question.
Really, really interesting. And to be honest with you, no, I haven't really delved into colour blindness. There is this really interesting, they've found this new receptor in the eye, only in the last, I believe 20 years, that signifies, even if you're blind, that you can pick up this receptor from the light that tells your circadian rhythm what time of day it is, digestion. And so therefore, I think way back when people were blind, they actually removed their eyes, and then they became severely ill and died because of this receptor, because actually blue light has so much more of a trigger to our cells of our skin and our eyes than we ever realized. So therefore, even if we are not thinking that, we've had a sunny day or might not be, we're still receiving eyes, even if our eyelids are closed, and also that connection to our circadian rhythm. So, yeah. Anybody else? Oh, yes. Yeah? Lady with the... Oh, is there another one?
Thank you. Kind of leading off the same question on colourblind, and you started to talk about it with Japan and that. I'm really interested in how the language you speak affects the way that you see the world. And the reason I'm bringing that up is I speak Scottish Gaelic, and the same word is used for light grey, blue, and natural green.
Wow, that's depressive.
Yeah. So basically, grass is blue.
Wow.
To you. So yeah, I'm really interested in that and how the different words that we use impact it. So if there's not really a question there so much as...
No, I find that really interesting. And if you're relating grey to other colours, I did think that was depressive, but maybe that's really positive, actually. Maybe it's actually like grey is then like, oh, look, it's so grey. This is awesome. Your body hears everything that your mind says. So it is, and they did this study the other day with different sectors of people, and these 6-year-olds got told to go into different rooms and read these different words on the table, and one room had all these words on the table that was like bungalow, walking stick, everything to basically do with retirement, and they actually walked out of that room so much slower. And it was really interesting, just because they read different words relating to retirement. They didn't see the word retirement, but because it was just all older words, their bodies and their brains literally sunk into that. So I do think it's really powerful, the language that we talk, and how, you have experience and you have emotion, and then they collide together and we create language. And sometimes language can be a really clumsy way to actually communicate the two of these things. Yes.
This is a slightly more technical question. I know that there's some debate amongst lighting manufacturers between using CRI and using basically the truthfulness of the colours themselves and how vibrant they are. When you're building very colourful installations like that, how do you go about choosing your sources so that you're getting the colours that you want as well as CRI, because that's clearly also important to you?
Yeah. Well, CRI obviously lends itself to the white frequency. And so therefore, if you're trying to elicit the colors, often the immersive experiences, obviously you have daylight has been removed, so therefore you're wanting just the colors to really pop out, so therefore you're looking at actual color sources and wavelengths itself. With artwork, actually, I'm currently doing, which is about selling pieces and for galleries and bits and pieces. I'm very much looking into a really good source of CRI, which light embedded within the canvas. So therefore, it literally brings out all the colours that I have embedded into there. So yeah, I do my research on the architectural side of things, and then with LED again, trying to look RGBW and warm white. And looking into that specific LED pixel that actually has that warm light value is really important. Oh, yeah, hello. That was convenient.
How did you get into doing like immersive light experiences, such a niche thing to do? Did you start with art, or did you start with like architectural lighting?
It's a good question. Obviously, I was obsessed with light. And not obviously, I was, unfortunately. And it wasn't until, because at the age of 7, I don't know, I feel like I just like skimmed over the first, it always goes into blindness when you do a talk. But when, at the age of 7, I still wasn't being able to communicate like a normal human. So they started to have a few worries about me, and they took me to hospital, and they realized that my brain basically had a real processing failure to it. So my brain was being rewired, and because I fortunately had a really high IQ, so I was kind of like making it seem like I was okay. So that my brain was just like, I have no idea what we need to do here, so let's do this. And I became a bit of a science experiment. For every 2 years, I'd go to Guy's Hospital in London for every 2 weeks, and I would have like loads of scientists and doctors in front of me being like, what does she react to? What does she do? And I kept getting put into these sensory rooms, and I was like, okay, I feel like home. So experiences and sensory rooms have been a real like deep connection to me. And so I went to university, obviously very much lighting based, knew fuck all about light, kept electrocuting myself, thought it was cool. And then my tutor at uni, he did say, you do realize everything that you've done in your history is to do with light. I kept like weaving lights through my sketchbook and bits and pieces. So I was like, does it? I didn't realize. And I was completely oblivious that I'd changed basically the alphabet to a color coding system, because that's how I worked. Anyway, I graduated with these different light pieces, and then I was watching Strictly Come Dancing, and I thought, lighting on here is quite cool. Maybe this is my thing. So I saw the credits rolled. Mark Kenyon, lighting director. Googled him, found an email address. I emailed. I'm very, very dyslexic, so not only can I not speak the word, I can't spell the sodding thing either. So I wrote this email saying like, wow, love your stuff, this is mine. And he actually came back to me within half an hour. I said, yeah, come meet you on the set of Strictly. Really. No one could see the fucking food at night time. So therefore, I thought I'll just design a tray with some lights in it. So I did. I went to Maplin, understood how to put it together. And then when these guys were coming in, plugging in their podiums, I was like, no, light is my thing. So I went to them and said, look, I'd really like to work with you. This is a product that I'd really love to bring to market. Would you be up for it? And they said, yeah, come on board. So I then did 3 years in making props for X Factors and Strictly's and the Brits and having my dream job. But I didn't get that like gooey feeling of thinking I've done something for other people. I just did something for the director or whoever. So therefore, I then thought, no, actually, I want to show people how beautiful the light can affect us. So I then went off on my own and started my own business for the last 15 years now. So creating immersive installations. That was probably a really long reply to your talk. So sorry, question. Anybody else? Okay. Cool. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.